In the early 4th century, the Roman Empire stood at a crossroads. The system of the Tetrarchy, devised by Diocletian, had stabilized the empire after decades of turmoil, but rival claimants still vied for power. At the same time, Christianity, once a marginal sect, had survived savage persecutions and was growing in influence. Into this moment stepped Flavius Valerius Constantine, a soldier emperor whose spiritual journey would reshape the future of Europe. This is the story of how a vision of the Chi Rho led him to embrace the Christian God and set Rome on the path toward becoming a Christian empire. From his youth, Constantine moved through the shifting courts of the late Roman Empire. Born around 272 AD in what is now Serbia. He spent his early life at the court of Diocletian before joining his father Constantius in the west. Constantius ruled as Caesar and later as Augustus of the western provinces. Unlike other emperors, he moderated the harsh persecution of Christians. When Constantius died at York in 306, the army proclaimed Constantine emperor. He soon found himself locked in a multi-sided struggle for supremacy, facing rivals like Maxentius in Italy and Licinius in the east. During these years, Constantine worshipped Sol and the unconquered sun, and honored the pagan gods alongside the high divinity the Christians venerated. Yet he was also tolerant of Christians and allowed them to practice their faith, a policy that contrasted with the recent great persecution under Diocletian. As he marched toward Rome in the autumn of 312 to confront Maxentius, Constantine grew anxious about reports that his enemy used magical arts. According to Eusebius, Constantine prayed unceasingly to the divine power that he and his father had worshipped, seeking aid against sorcery. One afternoon, while the army was on the move, Constantine looked up and beheld an extraordinary sight. Above the blazing sun he saw a cross of light and, inscribed in Greek, the words, "In this conquer." Eusebius stressed that the emperor's soldiers also witnessed this phenomenon. The apparition stunned Constantine, who wondered what it meant. That night he dreamt that Christ appeared, carrying the same sign, and commanded him to fashion a replica as a military standard. Constantine awoke convinced that this was a divine message. The following morning he summoned goldsmiths and craftsmen to make the labarum, a standard that would bear the symbol he had seen in the sky. It consisted of a tall pole plated in gold with a crossbar from which hung a square banner. Near the top of the pole was a jeweled wreath, encircling a monogram composed of the Greek letters Chi and Rho, the first two letters of the word Christos. This Chi Rho monogram was novel to his Latin soldiers. Constantine himself seems to have conceived it as a heraldic device representing Christ. He ordered the symbol to be painted on his men's shields and wore it on his own helmet. With this new standard, Constantine's army marched toward Rome. On the 28th of October 312, the two forces clashed at the Milvian Bridge over the Tiber. Maxentius held Rome and had strong defensive positions, but Constantine attacked boldly. His troops fought under the labarum, and, according to Lactantius, with shields marked by the heavenly sign. When Maxentius's forces retreated toward the bridge collapsed, and he drowned in the river. Constantine entered Rome victorious. He attributed his success to the Christian God, convinced that the vision and the sign had brought him divine favor. This belief marked a turning point. Though he continued to honor Sol Invictus and other gods for a time, his devotion shifted decisively toward the God of the Christians. In the months after his victory, Constantine took actions that signaled a new relationship with Christianity. In February 313 he met Licinius at Milan, and together they issued the Edict of Milan, guaranteeing freedom of religion and restoring confiscated property to Christians. At the same time, Constantine began to grant privileges to the church. He distributed funds to build churches and aid clergy. He considered himself converted not by a missionary but by a heavenly sign from God himself, and he expressed gratitude by showering liberty, subsidies, and immunities on the body of initiates who conducted the Christian cult. According to Jones, Constantine attached to himself a Christian bishop, Hosius of Corduba, who became his advisor. Yet he did not immediately receive formal instruction in the faith or abandon all pagan practices. He still identified the Christian God with the unconquered sun and continued to honor the Day of the Sun in his legislation. Constantine's laws during the 320s reveal his evolving stance. In 318, he empowered bishops to act as arbiters in civil lawsuits, allowing litigants to remove cases from imperial courts and accept bishops' verdicts as final. In 321, he legalized bequests to the Church and ruled that manumissions performed before a bishop conferred full Roman citizenship. He built the Basilica Constantinia, later the Lateran Basilica, and its baptistry in Rome, endowing them with substantial estates in Italy, Sicily, and Africa. He prohibited branding criminals on the face, citing humanity and the belief that the human countenance reflected heavenly beauty. He repealed Augustan penalties against celibacy and childless marriages. In March 321, he decreed that law courts and workshops should close on the venerable day of the sun so urban populations could rest, though he did not call it the Lord's Day, and still linked the day to the sun. This law effectively established Sunday as a public day of rest. Even as he advanced Christian interests, Constantine showed tolerance for traditional cults. He permitted public soothsaying at pagan temples and retained the title Pontifex Maximus, head of the Roman religious establishment. He consulted diviners when lightning struck public buildings and authorized others to do so under certain conditions. Such measures reflect a transitional phase. Constantine sought the favor of the Christian God without immediately abolishing the religious customs of his subjects. He seems to have believed, at least initially, that worship of the unconquered Son and of Christ were compatible. Gradually, however, he favored Christianity more openly. He convened the Council of Nicaea in 325 to resolve the Arian controversy and enforce ecclesiastical unity. In his later years, he prohibited some pagan sacrifices and destroyed a few temples, though he never issued a general ban. Constantine's personal journey mirrored his political policies. He delayed baptism until shortly before his death, a common practice among 4th-century Christians who feared post-baptismal sin. Eusebius records that he requested baptism in Nicomedia from the Arian bishop Eusebius of Nicomedia. After receiving the sacrament, he died soon afterward, leaving the empire to his sons. Whether his faith was sincere or motivated by pragmatism has long been debated. Jones notes that Constantine had not been converted by any human missionary, but by a vision, and that he formed his own ideas about how to honor God. His sincere gratitude for military success coexisted with political acumen. By aligning himself with a growing religion, he secured support across the empire. Yet his letters to bishops and involvement in church councils reveal a genuine concern for Christian unity and doctrine. The consequences of Constantine's conversion were profound. His patronage transformed Christianity from a persecuted sect into a privileged religion. By funding church construction and endowing clergy, he provided infrastructure for rapid growth. By granting civil jurisdiction to bishops and legal recognition to church institutions, he integrated the church into the imperial system. His Sunday law set the precedent for Christian observance of the first day of the week. Although he did not force his subjects to convert, his example encouraged members of the Roman elite to embrace Christianity. Within a generation, Emperor Theodosius I would declare Christianity the official religion of the empire and prescribe pagan worship. Constantine's vision of the Chi Rho thus marked the beginning of a process that would reshape Roman identity and lay the foundation for Christian Europe. Constantine's story is one of spiritual awakening and political transformation. A soldier who trusted in the unconquered Son, prayed for aid, and saw a cross of light above the sun, accompanied by a promise of victory. Interpreting this as a sign from Christ, he adopted the Chi Rho as his standard and triumphed over his rival. In gratitude, he promoted the church, legislated in its favor, and convened councils to settle its disputes. His policies did not forcibly convert Romans, but they created a climate in which Christianity could flourish. When he died, the empire was already on a path toward becoming a Christian state. Constantine's vision thus not only changed his own life, it altered the destiny of Rome and the future of Europe. Thank you for spending time with us today. If this story encouraged you, please show your support by clicking the like button and subscribing to our channel, Daily Time with God. Your subscription helps us grow and share more inspiring content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you'll know when our next study is uploaded. And share this video with friends and family who might enjoy it too.